Hello and welcome back to the GCP-Mindset channel. Today, we'll talk about how sponsorship as a service is reshaping clinical trials for innovators.
Welcome to the GCP-Mindset channel and all topics on clinical research.
Today, we're focusing on an increasingly critical challenge in clinical trials. Who actually carries the legal and regulatory burden of a study? As trials become more complex and multinational, the role of the sponsor has evolved into one of the heaviest responsibilities in clinical research. What used to be handled internally by investigators or companies is now, for many, a liability too big to carry alone. And that's where sponsorship as a service, or SPaaS, steps in. Not just as a workaround, but as a structured, compliant solution to enable innovation without compromise. In every clinical trial, the sponsor is not just the one funding the study. They're the one legally responsible for its conduct. That means ensuring patient safety, overseeing data integrity, complying with local and international laws, managing vendors, and communicating with authorities. It's a 360-degree role, one that touches every part of the study from protocol design to archiving. What many underestimate is the scope of liability. If anything goes wrong, be it with safety, regulatory breaches, or data mismanagement, the sponsor is accountable. Not the CRO, not the investigator, not the funder. The sponsor? That's why, for many smaller players, assuming this role internally just isn't feasible anymore. Here's the paradox. Some of the most promising innovations in biotech and medtech come from small, agile teams. Think of a startup with 5 people and a novel therapy. They might have the funds and the vision, but not the infrastructure to run a compliant clinical trial. Even academic investigators with decades of research experience are backing away from sponsorship due to bureaucratic barriers, resource constraints, or institutional risk policies. So what happens to these projects? Too often, they're shelved, not because the science is weak, but because no one is able to carry the legal load of sponsorship. That's where SPaaS changes the game. Sponsorship as a service is exactly what it sounds like. An external partner assumes the legal role of the sponsor, operating under their own quality management system and processes, while the client retains ownership of the product and rights. SPaaS providers manage regulatory submissions and ethics approvals, oversight of vendor performance and site compliance, monitoring and safety reporting systems, communication with authorities and stakeholders, trial conduct and documentation, from start to close out. Clients provide the funding and investigational product, but the compliance burden and legal responsibilities are absorbed by the SPaaS provider. This model opens the door for companies and institutions that otherwise couldn't or wouldn't sponsor a trial on their own. One of the biggest advantages of SPaaS is risk mitigation. When a sponsor lacks adequate SOPs, personnel, or GCP infrastructure, moving forward with a trial can expose the entire organization to regulatory action or litigation. By transferring that responsibility to a qualified SPaaS partner, the client reduces operational and legal risk while still achieving their clinical goals. And there's another benefit: speed. For companies with no sponsor-ready setup, building one can take 12 to 18 months. With SPaaS, trials can begin much sooner because the infrastructure already exists. Of course, delegating sponsorship isn't something to rush into. It's not just a contract, it's a high-trust relationship. The SPaaS provider becomes the face of the trial, the point of contact with regulators, and the guardian of compliance. That's why transparency is critical. SPaaS isn't about control, it's about collaboration. The client still receives updates, stays involved in decision-making, and is fully informed throughout the process. Think of it like this: you're outsourcing responsibility, not visibility. So what does this look like in real life? Let's say you're a university professor with a promising idea for a phase 2 trial using an existing therapy in a new indication. You've secured partial funding, but your institution refuses to act as sponsor due to legal exposure. SPaaS gives you a pathway forward. Or maybe you're a medtech startup with an implantable device. Your team is lean, focused on product development and IP, but you have no capacity for managing clinical trial compliance. SPaaS can step in, run the trial under a compliant framework, and help you generate the data you need for approval. It's about unlocking opportunity for those with the science, but not the systems. At the end of the day, this is about more than just compliance. It's about bringing innovation to patients. There are too many potentially life-changing therapies and diagnostics sitting idle because the pathway to clinical evidence is blocked by structural or regulatory barriers. SPAS clears that path. It doesn't replace expertise, it empowers it. It doesn't erase responsibility, it reallocates it to professionals who are set up to handle it. So whether you're an investigator, an emerging biotech, or a medical device innovator, sponsorship as a service could be the missing piece that gets your study off the ground and ultimately delivers benefit where it matters most, to the patient. Thank you for watching our video, and we hope that you found it informative. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content on clinical research. We look forward to see you next time.